What's up? What's up? See if anyone will actually come in for a change here. I went for a walk already. I carry those weights, they're like 5 kilogram. I do my kind of sets. I do some bicep, tricep, and all exercise you can arm as I'm walking along. It was a bit summer earlier on, so I could get a bit of sun. It was warm enough that you're going to get something from it, you know. It's coming near the end of the summer. The longer we get the warm, the longer it is warmer. Like it's not sunny today, like it's still get out. It would have been too cold to go around no t-shirt, but I was doing the exercise at this time. I was walking. So I actually got some sun as well, even though it's not. It's warm enough. Going to get to that pleasure stage. I try to get as much as I can, like, even on dark cloudy. If it's warm, I'm still going to make the most of it, like, because I know just once it comes to sex, it's actually back to being really cold. For 8 months, guaranteed 8 months, possibly even 9, possibly even 10, and possibly even 12, and possibly even 3 years. So it has happened before. So yeah, when we do get any kind of sun, I'm trying to make the most of it, or any kind of warm weather at all. I'm trying to make the most of it, like, even if it's just warm and it's cloudy. It's kind of humid today, you know, the humidity. I was reading a book down here as well. Just getting some water. I normally sit outside, but when I'm starting the video, I always come in here because I've got a bit more privacy when I'm talking. It could even rain, like, it's that kind of weather. I'll show the sky now when I go out. But it's still warm enough to be wearing shorts and a t-shirt and that kind of thing, as long as you're moving. It's like 20 degrees Celsius. This summer has been reasonably good, you know, and I really have made the most of it. Tried my best to be outside nearly all the time, basically. That's the way it has been today. There was some heavy showers last night, but in all fairness, that was badly needed. I've been near the end now as well for cutting the hedges and all of that. Might have to do it once more. I actually lost a bit of weight off my stomach as well, because I've been doing that, walking around with those weights, and it's warm weather. I realised, I looked at myself there today, I actually have lost quite a bit of weight off my belly area. So I'm quite happy with that. Quite a bit. And I eat whatever I want pretty much still. Like, I cut out a lot of the ice cream, the bars of chocolate, and I still have some, but not as much as I used to. I have actually lost probably half the belly that was there. And that's just from walking around with those weights. I do the heavy weights as well. Every second day. It's quite hard to do that when it's very hot, when it was very warm, but I still continued doing it. And then some days I do the 10 kilo weights, which I find quite easy to do. But I keep doing it actually. Very rarely I have a day that I'm not doing weights. And it's varied. So I'm not getting bored. For a long time there, I was doing more or less the same thing every day. I do vary it. Depends on how I'm feeling on any particular day. Every 2 days I do the really heavy weights. I like to keep in touch, and it is actually making a big difference. I can walk around now with the 10 kilo weights and it feels natural. I can walk around for like 20 minutes. Oh, I have to watch myself. Keep scrapes on my legs from the turf sticking out here. When it happens. But yeah, I have maximized the amount of sun I was getting. I'm careful enough with getting the sun as well. Like, but I got as much. All I want most days is 20 minutes, 40 minutes, and I got that pretty much every day for pretty much every day for a couple of months. And every now and again, you would want a bit of a break from being out in the sun, you know. And some days we had 3 or 4 days in a row where it rains, and you know you don't mind that. And the grass and everything else needs the rain sometimes. Yeah, it was a reasonably good summer. It's not the best I've ever seen, but and I maximized. As I say, if I got 20 minutes, 40 minutes a day, that's all I need. Like, I don't really need much more than that. I'm always out walking up and down anyway, so I'm getting a lot more. I get a lot more than I realize I'm getting, you know. My father has been acting very, very strange, but there's nothing particularly new there. Just really strange behavior. As I say, nothing particularly new. He's not getting much supply off me, energy supply, because I'm always outside. I'm not available for arguments, and I'm just happy, you know, going out doing my own thing. And he's not feeding off me now. He's acting very weird. He's been in the doctors every week, as he has become the norm. Pretty much there's no reason, you know, there's no reason for him to be there, but he's constantly As soon as one thing's finished, he's looking for another thing. Most of the time, there's no reason for it. He's up to the doctors at least once every week. And he is acting very weird, strange. To put him on some medications there. He doesn't need to be on any pain medications because he's been off. He was on a real strong one. The chemist reckons he's actually an addict. He's actually told me himself. He thinks my father's an addict. Like he's shown behaviors of an addict, drug seeking and all of that kind of stuff. And they're noticing behaviors as well. They're looking at it every day of the week, like. So he's been off the pain medication for the last 6 months. He's only been on paracetamol. And there was no real problem. He didn't really need it, but now he started going to the doctors and telling them he has pain and all this, and the doctors are telling him, like, you didn't seem to need it for the last 6 months. Why do you need it now? He's more so, they reckon he's looking for the medication. He doesn't actually have the pain. He's missing the medication. So yeah, the chemist is kind of seeing it. He's displaying like drug-seeking behavior. He hasn't needed it for over 6 months, and now all of a sudden, he's probably bored. And he's missing the effect that he used to get. And now they think he is actually an addict. He's coming in now looking for medications. They reckon he actually doesn't even need it because he hasn't needed it for over 6 months. But he's looking for it now. He's actually gone into the doctors looking for it. So they see this all the time. They reckon he's an addict, basically. And he does act very, very strange when he's on the medication. And all they give him is sulfidine. He's been totally hyper. Some young doctor gave him something for 3 days because he thinks it could be some kind of trapped nerve or something. He gave him a medication that's kind of like Valium, and he's been acting totally high. Like he's high, like, and talking and talking and talking. Some of these cats don't look too well at all. In all fairness. How are you? Hello, the Martin eating too well. How are you today? Yes. Shucks, that one could be pregnant. Which is ridiculous. A lot of them are pregnant. There's far too many cats already. And I can see that there's some of them are going around pregnant. And they're too young. They're too young, like, to be having kittens. It's an awful lot of shite down here, so I might just go back. Cat shites. All I'm wearing is a pair of flip-flops. So yeah, it is a bit of a worry when your father is going around high as a kite, but you only give him stuff for 3 days. It's not really an improvement in behaviour either. He just feel like he can say what he wants. You know, very changeable mood. Like, I don't even be around very small amounts, but I can tell whatever that was that they gave him for the 3 days, he was acting very high. He was on something, like he was high. He's got this kind of attitude of he doesn't give a fuck because he's high, like, you know. Of course, he always thinks he's dying. That's a constant thing for the last 4 or 5 years, 10 years. You know, in his mind, he's always thinking about he's dying. More or less 10 years, but it's got even more ramped up in the last 3, 4 years. And he isn't. That's the most ridiculous part of it. He actually isn't, like, but he's obsessed with it. But yeah, I'm outside most of the time. When I do have to, it's kind of funny, like, you know, he's clearly high on. They only gave him enough stuff for 3 days. The chemist was wondering why did they give him that. It's kind of like a Valium effect. And to try to ring the doctors, but it's that time of the evening, the doctors won't answer the phone. Okay, they only gave him enough for 3 days, but he's been high as a kite for the last 3 days. And the painkiller they gave him was only sulfidine, which is basically paracetamol and codeine. But it's not that strong, like. But he's finished on whatever that was that they gave him. It's supposed to be a muscle relaxant. It's not exactly the same as Valium. It's a different. I don't even know the name of it. But he's definitely been very high. Slurring. He sounds like he's drunk a bit. You know, that kind of stuff. He almost acting like he's drunk in a way. I hope he isn't, but he's almost acting like that's almost the way he's acting. Is like he's actually drunk for the last 3 days. It is kind of funny in a way, but it's also not funny, you know. See that stuff that my neighbour put on the apple trees? That works. The crows are still going in and getting an apple every now and again. It doesn't work on the crows, but it does work on all the other birds. Keeps them off from eating the apples. It's kind of tinfoil with stuff on it. Colour stuff. This thing's starting to try and flower again. It's too late. It's getting too late. You've only got a couple of weeks. And as soon as it gets cold, it'll put in all that effort. It needs to flower very quickly, and it's not flowering very quickly. It's trying all right. It did the same thing last year. Just once it gets to September, that's the end of that. Like, that's already finished for this year. This one's still flowering a bit. I will cut this back. Try and get it into a normal shape. So yeah, the last couple of days has been a bit strange, but I'm still doing what I normally do. I spend most of my good few hours down here between, walking, doing weights, reading, get my dinner in between. Most of the day is gone, and I'm doing the same thing down here as I would be if I was up in my own room, like. And it's actually healthier in a lot of ways because I'm pretty much outside instead of being inside. I'm breathing in the fresh air all day. Instead of doing my weights inside, I'm actually doing it outside. I do sit outside usually. I just come in here if I'm doing a video because I've got the walls around. I've got more privacy if I want to talk. Neighbours are usually out in their gardens working, and it's nice to have the walls around you if you want to talk, So yeah, during the summer, it's perfectly fine being down here. We'll see what's it like during the winter. It does make you that much harder. You get a different kind of strength when you do that kind of exercise outside than if you do it inside, especially in the cold weather. It gives you a different level of toughness, hardness that goes beyond the exercise you're actually doing. It's just a toughness physically that you wouldn't get if you did the same exercise inside. So yeah, I will be doing that this winter. I'll be down here. Apparently coronavirus has been around for the whole summer. Apparently it's been rampant, and some people have been very sick, especially around the times, when everybody's going around getting their cupcakes. And I only heard about that. How did I hear about it? Oh yes, a person that was on the bug where we get the turf has a relation in an old folks' home, and apparently it's rampant all the time, constantly. And of course, they all get their cupcakes when they're supposed to get it. As the way that they're giving it to everybody now that wants it. It goes by the age. A certain age group gets it, and then when that crowd is finished, the next age group can get it, and that's the way they're giving it to people. And as they're giving that to people, there's always a big rise there's always a big rise in the amount of people who are sick, from the actual. I'm sure doctors can see that. I'm sure other people, they can't be totally blind. I'm sure they can all see what's happening, but the prevention is causing the disease, basically, is my best way of putting it. If I know someone has had it, I will avoid them. If I know someone has had a cupcake, of course, most people don't tell you that they've had it. It's become the norm for a lot of people to go in and just get it, and they don't tell you, like. But if I know someone has had it, I keep away from them for at least 1 week minimum. I won't spend any time, and I've done that. The only time I'm really stuck in a situation with a person who's got that cupcake, and I feel like it's going to be a danger to me, is my own father. I'm in the same house, and I do my best to keep away from him for at least 2 weeks. Spend very, very short periods of time in his company for 2 weeks. I mean less than 5 minutes, like, because I take it that seriously myself. It does have an obvious effect on him as well, for at least 1 week of behavior, very, very strange, bad behaviors, and he gets that twice a year. And a lot of his friends don't get it anymore. Some of them do, people, because a lot of people decided that at the start that you had to have a choice. People have to be given a choice. You can't just be automatically made to take that kind of thing. Everyone still has a choice now, because a lot of people said, a lot of people were thinking for themselves, and they weren't just doing what everybody else was doing. And that's why everybody doesn't have to take it. And what they really wanted to do, and you could pick it up during the time period, they wanted to give it to people every 2 months, I think. And of course, you would rapidly have depopulation, very rapidly, if you were given every 2 months. And did have plausible deniability as well. It's already having a major effect on excess deaths. The deaths aren't being caused by the disease, so something else is actually causing excess deaths, and we all know what it was. As I say, a lot of the older people aren't even taking it anymore, but a lot of them are still taking it. And then you'll have people of all ages. As people get younger, the less people are taking it, like. And then you'll have people, even my age and younger than me, who are still going in to get it, and they will be given it when it's their turn, when it comes down to their age. Some of my own family members are taking it, and they're always sick, and they get it. They think, like, they really believe in it. It's like being a cult member, isn't it? In a way, and there's nothing you could do to change their mind now. They've bought into it so much that it would be almost impossible. Of course, they can see me and how healthy I am, and I never actually took it. So they must be asking themselves questions. You do notice with a lot of the people that their personality has actually changed quite a bit in the last 5-6 years. And I guess you could match that up. You could match it up with the cupcakes, like. People having these very selfish, all about themselves personality. I can tell by a person's eyes if they've had the cupcakes or not. the eyes are almost swollen for younger people, and there's a very extreme whiteness. The white part of the eyes seems like it's a little bit swollen, and it's very, very white. And I can actually spot someone, which is most people, quite easily, that's actually had the cupcake. If they only even had one, you can actually tell. Same thing with the kids. Some people's foreheads have changed. The shape of their foreheads. It's done something. Almost like a Neanderthal. It would be the best way I could describe it. So yeah, it's obviously all part of a eugenics program where they wanted to bring the world's population down to 500 million. You know, that means about 8.5 billion people will need to die, which will be a major problem in itself. With that many dead bodies, would have a knock-on effect. The karma that will be brought on by reducing the population to such an extent, they're almost guaranteeing an extinction for themselves as well. Like the karma, which they probably don't believe in. I don't think they actually believe in God whatsoever either. You know, the way they're kind of doing their rationalization is that God hasn't actually done anything. He's an invisible God, and hasn't intervened, hasn't done anything about all the different wars that they've caused for the last couple of 100 years. You know, some of the massive ones. We just deal with the more recent massive ones, like where there was vast amounts of people killed on both sides, absolute slaughter, and it still goes on today. Ukraine being a prime example of that, where there's mass slaughter going on pretty much every day on both sides. And God has never intervened, and you know, has never stopped all of these atrocities, even going back way further, like burning people at the stake. Jesus being hung up on the cross, people getting, you know, Vlad the Impaler used to have people impaled on stakes, stick the stake up their arse, and let the gravity, their body falls down through the stake. I mean, absolutely horrific stuff. People being burnt to death. You can't really get worse. They will be dead quite quickly, but it's horrific. And God never actually really intervened, you know. So they don't. Their attitude is, for a lot of these people at the top who want to bring the world's population down as much as possible, that God doesn't actually exist and He's not going to intervene. This is what they actually believe themselves. I've read a lot of their books that they don't expect us to read. That's basically their attitude. Like, they don't believe that there is any God. They are God, and they're going to become like God themselves on the planet, and that's their, you know, objective, is to actually be God, to become God. For, you know, it's a certain segment of society that are very, very wealthy. That's their belief system, that they're, you know, God as an actual being doesn't actually exist as far as they're concerned. So they're going to become God, you know, get that powerful on the planet that one person will actually be able to call themselves God of the planet Earth, a human being. And this is what it all boils down to. First of all, you get the New World Order, where you've got a one world government, and then you've got one person who's in charge of that one world government, and that one person is God. And it's not even a new concept. The ancient Egyptians basically their king. The world, they thought he was the god of the entire world because they only knew about the part of the world that they were in control of. So as far as the ancient Egyptians were concerned, their god, the aspect of their god was the king. He was actually God, literally, as far as they were concerned. And that's what they want. They want to bring in that kind of. It's totally bullshit, but this is what they believe that they can actually achieve. That one person will be actually God on the planet and have total control over absolutely everything. That's ego. You've already got a huge amount of wealth, and you've achieved everything you can possibly achieve in your life. They're still going to die, of course. So that's where the transhumanism comes in. They're still obviously going to die, the same as everybody else. So they're not actually God. So they're trying to bring in a kind of transhumanist development where you'll be able to upload your consciousness into a machine. It still won't be you, just once you have one update, then it's not you anymore. It's never going to actually work, putting a consciousness into a machine. That's their kind of dream for, to be able to have eternal life. The transhumanist idea, keep your consciousness existing within a machine. So then you've already gained the New World Order. You've already got yourself to be, the god of the world. So now all you need is eternal life to be able to exist forever as your consciousness within a machine. And then you will literally be God of the planet Earth for eternity. This is what they want, this is what the dream is. It's absolutely insane. And, it's never going to work. But that's the basic plan. That's the final destination, of where they want to end up. The people that are allowed to exist only be allowed to exist, and they'll just have to do whatever they're told. The ones that are actually allowed to exist will be totally brainwashed from the day they're born until the day that they die. And if there's any signs of disobedience or rebellion, well then they'll just get rid of that particular person and keep someone else that doesn't show any signs of disobedience. It'll be like a hell on earth kind of situation. It's not going to be good for anyone. It's not going to happen very quickly. It won't get to that stage very quickly. And that's just one particular segment. It's not the entire planet that has that plan. It's just one particular. They've gone mad with the power, Absolute power corrupts absolutely. They've got so much power that they honestly believe that they can actually become God. They don't believe that the actual God exists. So they'll become it. And of course, Earth is only tiny. It's only like a piece of grain in the universe. So yeah, even if their plans did all come together and they actually achieved their end goal, something will always come in from outside. Uh, Something will always come in from outside the earth, and will, things like that will never work out the way you expect. Nothing on this planet ever works out the way you plan things. So yeah, that plan, they haven't got to the point where they're able to have their eternal consciousness. And the most annoying thing for those kind of people is that they have to die someday, and they lose everything. Everything. You only have a short life. You're the richest man in the world. How sickening is it for you to have to die, and you're going to be the same as everybody else when you're dead? And most of them probably just die and disappear. They just die. That's it. They're dead. I don't believe there's a hell or anything like that where people get punished. If there is, they'd obviously be going there. With all the power and wealth that they have, they could have done so much good. They chose to go absolutely insane instead. And of course, it's not everyone, but it's a certain segment. Very, very strange. Very, very strange world that we're on. But as I said, the earth here that we live on is literally minuscule. And you look at the size of the universe, for anyone to think that we're the only ones in it. I do believe that the entire universe is conscious. It's a fair point. Why hasn't God intervened? You will always get the people in religions that will tell you we've got free will when we're on earth, and it's up to us to make our choices. It's not really that important if earth survives or not. Or if the human race on the earth survives or not. Probably isn't all that important. The earth itself could survive. The whole thing could be a simulation, of course. This entire thing, like when you're listening to that kind of script that I'm after portraying there of the wet dreams of some of the people that's got a huge amount of power. It's just all it sounds like a computer game, trying to beat the game to become the boss, that kind of stuff. That's all it sounds like. And it's almost like a computer game for a lot of the people at the top who've got as much money as they need to do anything that they want. They can control what entire countries will do because of their wealth. It is almost like a computer game. You can have wars. It's almost like playing a game with real people, you know what I mean? So the whole thing could well be a simulation, but it goes way beyond this tiny planet Earth. And with that kind of attitude, if those are the people that are in charge of the planet, the human race won't ever be allowed to spread around anywhere. They'll be just, kept. If that is a kind of a rule, they'll just be kept on this planet. They won't be allowed off it. They can wreck this place. They won't be allowed off to wreck everywhere else. I'm pretty sure that a lot of our own galaxy is already inhabited by a super intelligent civilization that's like billions of years ahead of us. It looks like there's actually civilizations that have control over multiple galaxies based on some of the information that I've seen on the way some of the galaxies are actually in a circular formation. That wouldn't happen like naturally. There would have to be some kind of control. Of course, the whole thing could be just a simulation. But I do think there are civilizations already billions of years ahead of us that's got control over entire galaxies. And, we've got people here on Earth that think they're good when all they've got control of, and they haven't even got control of it, is Earth. They haven't even got control of this planet. And to think that they're actually God-like. Apparently, if you ask any of the religious people, we've all got free will. God doesn't interfere in our lives when we're down here with all them atrocities that we've all know about and have seen, even in our own recent lifetime. God still doesn't interfere because we've all got free will. If you're innocent, well then it does seem a little bit harsh, admittedly, that people are left to go through unjustified torments in their own lives, in their physical lives. It does seem a little bit extreme to allow that kind of stuff to happen and never actually interfere. But I guess we'll all find out someday. It could all just be a very big test, but it is a little bit sadomasochistic when you see the extremities, the stuff that actually does happen. A lot of people don't realize, or they never face it, the actual reality of what people go through in wars and in other things that happen around the world, even just natural disasters, and none of it is a very, very positive, the existence on Earth. But you can pretend to live in your own little bubble and ignore all the bad stuff that's happening to everybody else. And that's what most people do. They try to live in their own bubble and totally ignore all the bad things that are happening to all the other people all around. But that's wrong as well, to try and just live in your bubble and ignore everything else that's going on all around you. I don't even know why I started talking. I just filled a bottle off from the tap. It's just handy when I'm down here doing the weights. I don't actually buy the water because it's no better. I don't want to be going up and down to the house all day. When I'm doing my weights, I need a drink of water in between, and it is quite warm. So I just bring it down and fill up one of those bottles and bring it down. The water is no better out of the bottle. I used to drink it always. I used to always drink it, the bottled water, and I realized I was getting a bit sickened by it. Sometimes the water can be actually contaminated and has to be taken back again. The actual water, there has been times when there was recalls from the actual bottled water, because it wasn't clean enough for people to drink it. So yeah, it's no better drinking that out of the bottle. And then of course you've got all the microscopic bits of plastic that are in it as well. It's 6:15 already. So that's it, That's it. The days just go by. I guess I just felt like coming on. I don't even know why I ended up talking about that stuff. It just went from one thing to another. And of course, life can be reasonably okay, but it's not all totally in our control. I personally do believe that there is a God, and it is infuriating that he doesn't intervene with some of the atrocities that goes on. It is actually infuriating that there is no intervention, and never really has been that I know of, other than fairy stories. From thousands of years ago. Yeah. Time for me to take. I'll be back in a second. Get myself some sweets. Yeah, even with the world being the way it is, you can still have contentment. As much as you possibly can, all things considered. It's America that anybody could be content. What day is it today now? It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'll be back in a second. I'm just doing something. Life can be reasonably okay if you just try to mind your own business and avoid all the illusions that are going on around us. It can be reasonably okay. Depends on your personality as well. Like, I can be reasonably content spending most of my time hanging around down here. I'm content enough with that. Most people wouldn't be able to do that. But for me, I actually prefer this than being in the house. Over the last 3 years, I've actually realized I actually prefer this. The energy is nicer. actually prefer being down here. I do listen to music. I'm doing my daily routine that I normally would be doing. I do some press ups, sit ups. It takes hours. Like I walk around. Normally I'd be out on the bike for half an hour every day as well. I'm kind of missing the bike. Haven't got the bike fixed yet. Kind of missing it. But I filled in, other stuff now. The bike is still working, but it's not safe to go on a long journey. It's okay to go up and down to do short trips, but it's not really safe. I need to wash something down now. Yeah, it's not really safe to have the bike to go on a long trip at the moment. It needs to be serviced. You know the way your car needs to be brought in. And, I've got bald tires and the brakes pads are worn away and, it needs a brand new tire. It needs a new tube. So, yeah, just once I have that job done, the bike will be safe, then I can go back cycling around again. That's why I haven't been cycling for the last couple of months. I'm still going up and down on the bike, just short trips to the shop and that kind of thing. Which it's not safe for any long journeys. So it's going to, if I bring the bike in, it's going to be, I won't have it. I won't have a bike for a week. I'm still not at that stage where I can just go out walking around. Three months off the Xanax, but I still haven't got my confidence to actually go out and just walk down around the town, just going out like a normal. My confidence isn't even back that. It's not back to that stage. It's not back to that stage yet. I've been very patient. I've been very patient up to now. I know when I'm able. I know when I do get there at last. I find it easier to go down on the bike, to come back up on the bike, because it's much quicker. So if I need to go and do something, I just feel more confident doing it when I've got the bicycle. A lot of it is actually in the mind, of course. Just that I start panicking, which doesn't really happen actually. Hasn't happened for a long time. Because I've been doing that thing of watching my thinking most of the time. It does slip every now and again, but most of the time I have been, for the last couple of weeks, couple of months, being aware of my own thinking, the direction my thinking's going in, and catching myself when I'm going off in the wrong direction and then restarting. I've been doing that most of the time. So there's big improvements, but my confidence isn't 100% back yet. Just to go out and do basic stuff. I go to the restaurants, but I cycle down, I cycle back up. If I had to walk back up, I would walk back up. But I feel more confident using the bike because it's quicker. That's what I got used to now. I don't like going out walking around. I like to go on the bike. I can go up and do whatever I need to do in a shop or whatever quite quickly. can be up and down. When you walk somewhere, it's going to take 15 minutes to get there. It's going to take 15 minutes to get back. You do the same thing on the bike. You be up and down 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So I just much prefer using the bike. I got used to it. And I still do, for the last couple of weeks, I'm doing at least an hour walking around every day. It's a lot easier to do that, of course, during the summer. So it's not like I can't walk. I can. Then, of course, is there anywhere that you actually want to go? You can ask yourself every evening. I don't even bother doing that anymore. Is there anywhere I can go now? Is there anywhere I actually want to go in the evening to meet other people? And the answer is no. There's nowhere that I actually would say I'd love to go there now and meet some people. And there's actually, I'd much prefer doing what I'm doing myself. And when it gets to around 7, 8 o'clock, I do go back into the house. And I go into the kitchen. I get my tea. My father stays up until at least 10, 11 o'clock. And I just, after I eat my tea, the evening meal, basically, sandwich or something smaller that you do eat in the evening. I do read, I do read my books in the kitchen. So any time I'm actually up in my bedroom for the last 4 or 5 months is when I'm asleep. My father goes to bed. I go into the sitting room and I continue reading. So I'm reading for maybe 3-4 hours every day. I'm probably reading about 5 books at the same time at the moment. Yeah, probably. I'm about halfway through 5 books at the same time, and that's when I actually get into reading. My brain works better that way. It's all connected, of course. I find it works better for me by reading 4 or 5 books at the same time, because I start making connections. Not everybody could do it that way, but that suits my way of learning. I start making connections with all the different ones, and I remember it better when I make connections. Yeah. I think I'm getting to a very, very deep level with the stuff I'm reading now as well. I'm actually really, really deep, and I'm actually getting benefit, which is the main reason why I was reading it in the first place. I want to use it. I want to use the techniques that suit me, that I want to use, to actually improve my life. And every day I do all the right things. And I do expect eventually that because I'm doing all the right things, eventually a lot of stuff will actually start to fall into place. I really enjoy being here. Just right now, looking at how there's about 20 or 30 birds on top of the roof of the house, and they're all jumping around the little birds in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. They look really cute and jumping around there. Just little small finches. There's 20 of them. They're so hard, probably all little young ones from this year. I actually enjoy just going around trying to focus on the nature that's around me, getting out of my own mind and focusing on your mind can only think about, you can only focus on one thing at a time. So if I'm out there and I'm going for a walk and I'm just looking at the nature as I'm walking around, that means my mind is actually focused on the nature. It's not focused on the bullshit that goes on in my mind. So I do that quite a lot as well. Just anytime you're focused on nature, it's a big jump in vibration, and you automatically feel better. Yes, I'm definitely making a lot of progress. But I've put in a huge amount of work consistently for a very, very long period of time, and I keep making improvements. It's not like because I've made mistakes before and I actually got myself out of a really bad situation and got back to 100% in every way. And then when I got to 100%, stopped doing all the things that got me there in the first place. And then slowly started to fall back down into old practices, old familiar ways of existing. But because I've gone through and made that mistake before, I was very unlikely that I'll actually make that same mistake again. Every time I make a mistake, I actually learn from it and try not to make that same mistake again. And I've made enough in my life. I've made huge amounts of mistakes. And each time I'm trying to make sure I don't make that again, as I keep moving along. So I'm constantly making improvements, most of the time unknown to myself. The name on the video was just totally random. There were the images that came up and I just put that stuff on it. Totally random stuff, like whatever. The images that just came up as I was writing it, I just stuck them up on it. Just trying to fit in with the Orionoid mentality, It does get darker earlier now. I had a big lift from the solar eclipse the other day as well. Didn't do any damage to my eyes or anything like that. I didn't have any glasses, but I did experience the entire solar eclipse. It was like over 95%. We just had a present at the top of the sun that wasn't actually filled in, just a tiny crescent at the top. So we more or less got a full eclipse. It went dark for at least 20 minutes, 30 minutes, like almost. It seemed like it was like nighttime for a good 20 or 30 minutes. But yeah, that was some experience. Didn't expect the feeling that it brought up in me, It was very intense. It is actually a very intense experience because the sun really creates all life depends on the sun on this planet, and then you've got something blocking it off and it just sets it off in your body. That's fucking not right, We basically totally rely on the sun, and then all of a sudden it's gone dark, it's gone, the sun's gone, even though I knew what was happening. intellectually, my body reacted instinctually. You know, my body's instincts reacted. How am I control? It was very intense. I was really enjoying it at the same time. Had a lot of fear, an unusual mix of emotions. The dark period was much longer than I anticipated. It was quite a long dark period where the sun was more or less blocked out a good 20 minutes. And then it took like another 20 minutes for the moon to kind of move across again. Yeah, it nearly took a whole hour before it actually totally passed, before the moon totally passed by the sun. After it had totally covered it, almost totally covered it, it was nearly an hour before the entire process was over, like, and it was quite dark for a long period of that. And then the sun did go down about an hour or so after, but I'm glad I had that experience for real in my own life, you know what I mean? I didn't just see it on TV. I actually experienced it. A lot of people did go out and look at it, and then there was a very large amount of people who didn't even bother. They literally didn't even bother going outside to look at it, like. And we actually had a clear sky where I live. We've got a very good view as well. This is where I do go to sit in the sun, and we actually had a, unobstructed view of the entire thing. There was very little cloud in the sky, so we got to see pretty much all of it. And it's something I can say, well, I don't ever need to go and see an eclipse. I've actually seen two. The first one was only 70%. This one was like 95. Technically, you'd want to see a total eclipse where you get to see the diamond ring, but we only barely missed out on that, like. So yeah, I count that one that I saw as being just as good as a full total eclipse. I count that as almost. It is. It's the same experience. It was almost totally. It was only a tiny little bit at the top that didn't get covered, and all the rest of it did. We went through the entire experience of it, the darkness. There are people who actually go on holidays to see those kind of things as well. Like, they'll actually go to another country to see it. It's not that unusual. We do get quite a few of them every year around the world. So it's not really that unusual. But it is something that almost everybody would say, I'd love to experience that for myself. I'm a little bit surprised with the actual energetic feeling it brought home to me, but all day yesterday I had a bit of a lift because of it as well. It's one of those ones. It doesn't seem like that big of a deal when you watch it on TV. You know, the eclipse, solar eclipse like that. Even when I had the lunar eclipse, I got the same kind of feeling of it. After the four blood moons, I got a very similar feeling from that as I did from the solar eclipse. You get to see the whole process unfolding. Almost the opposite, actually. It's almost the opposite. The solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse. But, I have actually experienced both, and you do need to see it for yourself. You see it on telly. It's not the same as experiencing it for real. There is a real energy that you can't explain unless you actually experience it. I didn't expect that. Like, I didn't expect almost spiritual, magical. Actually, it is very spiritual, overwhelming, like that kind of experience. Yeah, so I'm glad the first time I had one, it wasn't the same because it was only 70%. It didn't really go dark. And it wasn't as long. It didn't last as long. Yes, I got the experience. But it was nowhere near like the one I had a couple of days ago. Yeah, it's one of those you really need to be there and see it for yourself and to actually feel it for yourself. As I say, there was a certain amount of people who did. It's probably like 50-50. You know, about half the people actually took an interest and went outside and watched it. There was literally people walking around, didn't even know what was going on, like, didn't even know about it. People out for walks, people driving their cars, just walking around, didn't really even know it was happening. And then you have 50% of people who were literally out watching it, and then there was like 50% who had no interest in it whatsoever. That would be because I've asked for the last couple of days whenever I go into a shop, anyone I meet, you know, when you do a stop and chat, I've been asking everybody, oh, did you go out and look at the eclipse? And half the people are very enthusiastic about it and really enjoyed it, the same as me. It was an overwhelming experience as far as I was concerned. I was almost overwhelmed. I didn't expect it, like how overwhelmed I was. And then I didn't tell that to other people, but that's how I felt during that, and I'm glad I experienced the whole thing. But a lot of people were saying that they found it very magical, you know, very special experience, that kind of thing. And then you had other people who were making a joke of it, you know. They won't bother their arse going out to look at it, and it was about 50-50 is what I got. I pretty much asked everybody I met, you know. So yeah, it's interesting just to see. It was interesting for me to see how many people took an interest. Probably more people did than I expected. You know. All in all, pretty good form. Hasn't gone unnoticed by me as well, you know, that I never really heard about this solar eclipse until about a day before, and I had no idea that we were going to get 95%. Plus, we actually got better than 95%. It was almost totally covered, like there was just a tiny sliver at the top of the sun that wasn't We almost got totality. It was that close. There was only a tiny sliver, just a tiny sliver at the top. So we almost got the total thing. The only thing we missed was the diamond ring at the very end, when it goes totally black and you get a diamond ring thing. We didn't get that, but that's all we missed. And then we got the rest of it. I don't even know where I was going with the conversation there, but it hasn't gone amiss for me. That all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I was able to look at a solar eclipse directly outside my house. Totally out of the blue. There was nothing about it for weeks and weeks beforehand. Never heard of anything like, okay, I don't really watch TV. So if I was watching the news, maybe I don't watch it anymore. I don't even check. I used to check every day to see what's the headlines. I don't even bother anymore. The mainstream news. I've actually totally given up on it. TV, just brainwashing machine. So I probably missed, they're probably talking about it on the news and stuff for weeks, but I don't watch it. So, but I do have an interest. I haven't really been on the internet either, see. So there's a whole lot of websites that I'm subscribed to that would be literally into all of that stuff, but I'm not actually using it. I haven't really been on the internet much for a long time now. I'm putting more of my interests into the old-fashioned methods, like going back to reading full books, because I realized that the internet, you're only getting a touch of information. You're not getting any depth. So I'm going back to reading entire books. I'm kind of burnt out with the minor information that you get on the internet, but no detail. It's like the tip of the iceberg, but you're not getting any depth. If you want any depth, you have to read full books. So I'm going back to reading full books. If I want to watch a film, I get a DVD, so I get it in proper quality. Which, being a Mandela affected person, getting a solar eclipse totally out of the blue that I wasn't expecting, I literally was not. I didn't know about it. I wasn't expecting it. I only heard about it literally the day before. And then I actually had that huge experience. I do get regular experiences at nighttime, seeing unusual stuff in the sky that I just can't wouldn't be able to tell anyone what it is. I can't actually describe it. There's no way of me saying, oh, that's an airplane, that's a satellite. I've had so many of those kind of things. I go out most nights for about 20 minutes. If we get a clear sky, I can also see out my window. And we're also having a Perseid meteor shower, and some of those meteors have been fantastic. I've actually seen a few of them out my window at nighttime. It's been a very active meteor shower. So I've been seeing loads of pretty cool stuff just by going outside. As I say, I didn't know anything about the solar eclipse, and then all of a sudden I was outside looking at a full solar eclipse, and I also had a feeling while I was watching it that I'd actually seen this before, and in a way I already had seen it before. In 1999, I had a 70% eclipse, so in my mind, that memory is probably still there, that I had, and I experienced it without any barrier. I actually had the experience without my vision being blocked off. I experienced it directly, and that's the way I like to experience it. Didn't stare at the sun, obviously, but it is a bit strange that I almost had a total solar eclipse. Totally out of the blue, that I wasn't expecting. Really enjoyed it. In hindsight, there was a mixture of fear and overwhelming. So however the energy came off it, it was all good, nothing bad, but I was overwhelmed by the whole thing. And I think I got something out of it. It is like almost one of those experiences when you realize how small you are compared to the massive universe. Your problems are only small. I was trying to kind of use it as a new start as well for myself. Use that as a gateway to a new start. So yeah, I guess I'm going to leave it there. I was trying to get that out in a way. I think it's unusual that we had that solar eclipse almost out of nowhere. I think it's strange. Maybe I just wasn't. I am interested in those kind of topics, but I don't know how I possibly could have missed it. And then all of a sudden I was out looking at it, you know what I mean? I just feel like that was an unusual event, almost totally out of the blue. I'm just sticking it in as one of those bizarre experiences that I've had over the last 11 years. I've had one bizarre experience after another my entire life, and it's kind of ramped up even more in the last 11 years. And I'm sticking that in as another one. All of a sudden, there's a solar eclipse, just like that. And I'm sticking that in. A good experience, but very bizarre that it just came out of nowhere, like. And I hadn't heard much about it. I could have easily missed it because I had heard nothing about it, like. I guess I'm going to leave it there. Good luck. It's very hard to do the video when no one else comes in. Very, very hard to do. I'll be back on again in a couple of days. Hopefully I get someone else in, so I'll be able to, instead of just my thoughts, I'll be able to bounce off somebody else's as well. Just talking about my own stuff. I'll be able to see what other people have going on in their lives. It's very hard to do these on your own.